Hello, Bashar. My name is Keito. I'm from Japan. I have a question. When I do yoga or meditation, I can feel fulfilled and be myself, but it is difficult for me to stay in that. Thank you very much. Bye.
Well, again, please follow the formula as precisely as you can. That will help. At the same time, don't have the insistence or the expectation that the feeling you have from doing the yoga has to be exactly felt the same way when you're doing other things. You may be, in a sense, cutting yourself off by thinking that it's supposed to feel identical when you do something different than what you did before. And that's not the case, because if you are doing something different, the feeling is going to be different. The energy is going to be different in terms of how you experience it. But that doesn't mean it's not at the level it needs to be for what you're doing. So don't make false equivalencies by saying, well, I feel fulfilled when I'm doing the yoga, and I'm supposed to feel exactly the same way when I'm doing something else. No, you need to feel slightly differently when you're doing something else because there's an appropriate energy to everything you do. And therefore, get used to the idea that even though you may be operating on the perfect level you need to be operating on to do the other things, it's going to feel different. It's not going to feel like you're doing the yoga. The fulfillment will feel a little bit different for the thing you're doing.
Hi, Bashar. I love you. I have a silly common question. Let's say I have a job and I have a decent income, but there is this thing that is my passion, which I know if I follow it, that I will have less of an income. And I follow this passion, I will have much less income. And let's say my house goes on foreclosure and I'm responsible for my wife and children. And I tell them this is a blessing. Foreclosure is good. We have to look at it positively. And then later we will be homeless and I will tell them, okay, this is positive. This is a good thing. But at what time do we start questioning?
This is a perfect example of an individual who knows just enough metaphysics to be dangerous to himself. You are starting from a false premise. And the false premise is the idea that you think you know that your income will lower if you are acting on your passion. The actual amount of financial abundance may fluctuate. But if you remember that there are many forms of abundance, such as trading for something, such as being given a gift, such as synchronicity, such as imagination, such as communication, all forms of exchange that can work together to allow you to continue to be able to act on your passion, which would by definition be inclusive of your family if they're part of your excitement, which I assume they are, and will take care of everything that needs to be taken care of that is relevant for you. So don't start from the false premise that your passion can't support you.
Hello, dear Bashar. This is Art from Kanyus, and my question is regarding timelines. The timeline that I'm envisioning, that I'm truly invested in and putting my energy into, is one where all the civilizations come together here on Earth to function as one family under the stars, really, and where everybody is a little bit brought up to speed so that we also all function as telepaths in the sense that we are accessing the Akashic records to them, having all the answers, as you say, at the right moment, in the right time, the right answers, the right information. So yes, what is the preferred SSINI timeline, the one that you're envisioning, that you most probably are putting your energy and time and effort into to realize with us here on Earth?
As we read the collective energy now, it's probably going to take you, for what you're describing, about 300 years of your time to start experiencing in the way that you've described it to some degree. However, different individuals may experience it sooner, some may experience it later. We're only giving you an average overall bubble of the idea that you're describing as to the most likely, most probable time frame as we read the energy now that may allow such manifestations to be recognized more consciously on your planet as being normal or natural at that time, for such things to start happening more frequently among more people. but it will build. There's a process. You'll experience many different levels of it before you get there.
Iliova, my name is Pat from New Jersey. I have a question for you, and it's regarding Shakana, those 3 days that you spent moving through the eye of the needle. What were the procedures? Thank you and have a wonderful day.
There were no procedures. We were in what you might relate to as a telempathic lockdown. We all just went into a meditative zone. Nobody moved. There was nobody doing anything other than tapping into the Shakana experience at that moment for those 3 days. We emerged as different people. At that time, there were about 250 million of us on the planet.
Hi, Bashar. It's Gabriela from Canada. Can you comment on the belief that an individual is perfect, whether they're in alignment or not? And what is your definition of perfection?
What we mean when we say that is simply you are a perfect version of whatever you are at any given moment. It's not that you will be more perfect as you change. You will simply be differently perfect. We use that phrase to indicate that you're not attempting to measure yourself against some unattainable ideal of perfection. You are exactly where you need to be, exactly when you need to be there, even if it's not what you really prefer. But even if it's not, you are still a perfect representation of someone who's experiencing something they don't prefer. So it's simply a way of validating every state of being, even the ones you don't prefer, which then paradoxically actually gives you the opportunity to change into different state of beings you might prefer, because by being perfect for whatever you are at any given moment, you're not invalidating yourself, which prevents you from moving forward and changing in the way you prefer. But that has nothing to do with the idea you humans call perfection. Because perfection to many of you means you never change again. But change is a constant. So you will always simply become differently perfect, because you're already perfect for whatever you are as the representation you are. It's a perfect representation of whatever you are. That doesn't mean you can't change and become more in alignment with what you prefer to be, but that's not the way most people on your planet think of when they think of perfection. Most people on your planet think of perfection as a static state. That will never happen. You are always going to be dynamically changing.
I have another question. So when we switch between parallel realities, we have a memory of the past. And is that memory of the past of the individual in each parallel reality, or there's a different past that the individual does not remember, or there's a fresh start in the past that not exists?
All of them. Remember, it's not this or that, it's this and that. Everything you've described happens simultaneously, and it just depends on which one you focus on that gives you the experience you're having.
I think defining past would be helpful, and for me, past seems to be more tangible as we have physical objects that are from the past, whereas the future seems like the idea of illusion because there's no tangible physical objects from the future.
First of all, you don't have physical objects from the past. You create them again in the present. Nothing comes from the past. You are creating a continuity illusion, creating an object in the present, and saying it comes from the past doesn't mean it actually does. That's just your way of expressing the idea of time and space. And in fact, you actually do have objects from the future. You're just not allowing them to be visible yet until you believe they need to be visible in the present. So an object you're considering to be from the past is also an object from the future if you're creating the continuity that the object is still there in the next moment. That object came from the future.
Hello, Bashar. This is Lorena from Slovenia. I experience in my life a lot of synchronicity, and it's my favorite form of abundance. And related to that, I quite often get insight, a feeling, a vision, what an outcome of certain synchronicity is going to be. But what triggers me is this time space between my vision and the result of a certain synchronicity. So I would like to know, how can I overcome this most easily? Because otherwise I experience a lot of impatience. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Again, remember, impatience comes from the belief that you need patience, and believing you need patience comes from the idea that you're supposed to be somewhere better than you are. Be in the moment. There is nothing more important than what's happening in the moment. Use it fully, and you won't need to be patient waiting for something else to happen. And if you're not waiting for something else to happen, then you won't be impatient. It's that simple. You're creating an insistence. You're creating an expectation that there's something more important you should be focused on other than what's happening in your life at any given moment. And there isn't anything more important than what's happening in the moment. When you know that, you won't need patience and you won't be impatient. You'll be fully living and fully experiencing and fully appreciating and fully using whatever's going on right here, right now. Nothing else will take precedence.